The salty spray from the crashing waves below the cliff stung Esmeralda's eyes as she watched her stepfather's truck disappear down the dusty road. The Rolex, her father's last tangible memory, glinting mockingly in his rearview mirror before it vanished forever. "You're not my daughter anymore," he'd spat, his voice cracking like thunder over the Strait of Gibraltar, the words slicing deeper than any blade. In that instant, as the engine's roar faded into the Andalusian twilight, Esmeralda realized the watch wasn't just sold. It was the final erasure of the girl she'd been, the family she'd lost, and the love she'd dared to claim with Ivy. Esmeralda Vargas had always known the cliffs of Tarifa held secrets, where the winds from Africa whispered forgotten promises across the narrow sea. At 25, she was a force of the elements herself, bronze-skinned from endless days chasing waves on her battered surfboard, her green eyes sharp as the gulls that wheeled overhead. Her mother, Elena, had brought her here from a cramped apartment in Seville after the accident that claimed her father's life a decade ago. Javier Vargas had been a quiet watchmaker, his hands steady as the tick of time, leaving behind not fortunes but fragments. A toolbox of gears, a half-finished sketch of a family crest, and that Rolex Submariner, a 1950s relic he cherished like a talisman against the world's chaos. Elena remarried 3 years later to Tomás Ruiz, a burly fisherman with calluses like barnacles and a temper as unpredictable as the Levant winds. Tomás wasn't cruel in the overt ways of old Hollywood villains, no raised fists or midnight shouts, but his love was a transaction, measured in nets full of sardines and the rent he paid on their whitewashed cottage clinging to the hillside. Esmeralda tolerated him, learned to mend his lines and cook his catch, but the Rolex stayed locked in her father's old sea chest, a boundary Tomás never crossed. Until now. It started on a humid August evening, the kind where the air hung heavy with jasmine and unspoken truths. Ivy Harper had arrived in Tarifa 6 months earlier, a transplant from Portland, Oregon, chasing the nomadic dream of digital nomadism with her laptop and a backpack of regrets. At 24, Ivy was all soft edges and quiet fire, freckles dusting her nose like cinnamon, auburn hair cropped short against the heat, her blue eyes holding the depth of Pacific Northwest rains. She'd rented a room in the village pension, teaching online yoga classes by day and sketching wildflowers by night, her American accent drawing curious stares in the mercado. They met at La Vela, the surf shop where Esmeralda worked, fixing boards scarred by the Atlantic's fury. Ivy had shown up with a rental longboard, its fiberglass cracked from a wipeout, and Esmeralda's hands, strong, ink-stained from doodling waves on napkins, had lingered a beat too long on the repair. "You're a natural out there," Ivy said, her voice like a cool breeze through the shop's beaded curtain. "But that last turn? You were holding back. Afraid of the drop." Esmeralda laughed, wiping resin from her palms. "Afraid? Nah. Just respectful. The sea doesn't forgive hesitation." But in Ivy's gaze she felt seen, not as the dutiful stepdaughter or the girl still grieving a ghost father, but as herself, raw and unapologetic. What bloomed between them was slow, like the tide pooling in hidden coves. Stolen afternoons on the beach, toes buried in warm sand, sharing stories over lukewarm cervezas. Ivy spoke of her own fractures, a conservative family back home who'd prayed away her queerness, a college romance that ended in whispers and slammed doors. Esmeralda confessed the ache of her father's absence, how she'd found his old journals hidden in the attic, pages filled with dreams of sailing to the Americas, of a life unbound by Spain's ancient rhythms. "He wanted more for me," she'd say, tracing the faded ink. "Freedom. Like the wind." By October their touches lingered, fingers brushing over a shared cigarette, knees knocking under cafe tables. One night, under a canopy of stars that felt borrowed from Van Gogh, Ivy kissed her. It was tentative at first, lips tasting of salt and sangria. Then fierce, a dam breaking after years of drought. Esmeralda pulled back, heart hammering like a storm surge. "Tomás. My mother. This place. It's not like your Oregon trails, Ivy. Here, love like ours is a whisper in the confessional." Ivy cupped her face, thumbs wiping away the doubt. "Then we'll shout it to the winds. Together." Telling her family was Esmeralda's Everest. She chose a Sunday lunch, the table laden with paella steaming in the terracotta dish, the scent of saffron mingling with the sea's brine wafting through the open shutters. Elena, her dark hair streaked with silver, ladled rice with a mother's practiced grace. Tomas sat at the head, his fisherman's cap tilted back, nursing a glass of Rioja. Mama Tomas, Esmeralda began, her voice steady as she gripped Ivy's hand under the table. Ivy, invited as the American friend from the surf shop, her linen dress a splash of foreign color against the faded linens. Ivy and we're together. In love. I need you to know that. The room froze, the clink of forks silenced. Elena's ladle hovered, saffron threads dripping like tears. Tomas's face darkened, veins bulging at his temples. "Que cono," he muttered, shoving back his chair. "An American? A woman? Esme, this is madness. The devil's work. Straight from those Yankee films you sneak watch." Elena's eyes darted between them, pleading. "Hija, please. We've lost so much already. Your father. Don't make us lose you too." But Tomas exploded, his chair toppling with a crash that echoed off the white walls. "No daughter of mine parades this filth. Javier would roll in his grave." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the hinges rattled. Esmeralda's chest tightened, the paella turning to ash in her mouth. Ivy squeezed her hand, a lifeline in the storm, but the damage was done. That night, as rain lashed the cottage like accusations, Esmeralda slipped into the attic. The sea chest sat in the corner, dust motes dancing in the flashlight's beam. She lifted the lid, expecting the familiar gleam of the Rolex nestled in velvet. Empty. Her stomach plummeted. A note in Tomas's scrawl. "Sold it to pay for your sins. Get out if you bring this shame here again." Rage and grief warred within her, hot as the Sirocco. She found Ivy in the kitchen brewing chamomile to soothe the raw edges. "He took it," Esmeralda whispered, collapsing into her arms. "The watch. Dad's watch. Like I'm nothing." Ivy held her, rocking gently. "You're everything. We'll get it back. Or we'll make our own time." But the betrayal festered. Esmeralda avoided home, crashing on Ivy's pension floor. Their nights a tangle of whispers and tentative hopes. By day, she scoured the village pawnshops, the mercado's back alleys, Tomas's usual haunts at the harbor. Nothing. Rumors trickled in. He'd hawked it to a dealer in Gibraltar for quick cash, enough to fix his boat's engine and drown his fury in anisette. Weeks blurred into a haze of conflict. Elena called, her voice brittle over the line. "He's sorry, Esme. Ashamed. Come home. We can forget this phase." But Esmeralda heard the subtext. Choose us or her. Ivy, sensing the pull, suggested they leave, head north to Barcelona, or even across the sea to Ivy's world of craft breweries and pride parades. "Spain's beautiful, but it's breaking you. We could start fresh." Esmeralda wavered, the cliffs calling her back like a siren's song. "This is my home. My father's ghost walks these sands. I can't run." The climax shattered on All Saints' Day, winds howling like lost souls. Esmeralda confronted Tomas at the dock, the Rolex's absence a chasm between them. He was mending nets, his hands trembling from last night's bottle. "You sold him out," she accused, voice rising over the gulls. "My father, his memory, for what? Your pride." Tomas's eyes, red-rimmed, met hers. "Bride? You spit on everything he built. A family, a legacy. This Ivy, she's poison. Dragging you to hell." From the shadows of the bait shed emerged Elena, face ashen, and behind her, Ivy, drawn by a frantic text. The air crackled. Tomas lunged forward, not with fists but words. "I did what a father does, protect. That watch. It was mine now by right of marriage. Sold to purge the curse you brought." Esmeralda's vision blurred with tears. "Protect? You betrayed us all." She turned to flee, but Ivy stepped between, her voice a steady anchor. "Enough. This isn't protection, it's fear. Esmeralda's twice the woman you'll ever understand." Tomas laughed bitterly, but it cracked into a sob. "Fear? Of losing her like I lost my own boy to the sea." The admission hung a raw wound. His son drowned years back. A secret grief that fueled his storms. In the chaos, as Tomas slumped against the pilings, a fisherman buddy approached, clapping his shoulder. "Tomas, that buyer from Gib? He returned it. Said it felt wrong. Kept it in his shop window, but yesterday." A note fell out when he opened the back. From old Vargas himself. Esmeralda's heart stuttered. A note. The man nodded, pulling a crumpled envelope from his pocket. Buyer sent it over this morning. Thought you'd want it. Her fingers shook as she unfolded it. Javier's handwriting. Elegant loops from a man who'd scripted futures in tiny gears. To my Esmeralda, if you find this, time isn't in the metal but in the moments we steal from it. Love fiercely, mi amor. No matter the shape, the shore, the storm. Your father sails with you always. Javier, 2013. The words blurred but the truth sharpened. Tomás stared, face crumpling. He knew? About? Elena gasped, hand to mouth. Ivy wrapped an arm around Esmeralda, silent strength. In that salt-soaked dawn, as the note passed hands like a sacred relic, the winds shifted. Tomás reached out, tentative. I was wrong. The watch is yours. And if Ivy makes you whole. Esmeralda met his gaze, the chasm narrowing. She does. But forgiveness? That's my time to measure. They didn't leave that day. Instead, over black coffee at dawn, the four of them talked, haltingly, painfully. Elena shared her own hidden letters from Javier. Dreams of a life less bound. Tomás confessed his terrors, the bottle's false courage. Ivy spoke of bridges, not walls, her American optimism a balm on old wounds. Months later, the Rolex ticked on Esmeralda's wrist, its face scarred but steadfast, as she and Ivy walked the cliffs. The note, framed in their shared apartment overlooking the straits, whispered of redemption's hard one. Tomás joined them sometimes, mending nets with stories instead of silence. Elena baked paella for two families now entwined. Love, Esmeralda learned, wasn't a straight line from Seville to Portland, but a winding path through betrayals and notes hidden in timepieces. In Tarifa's eternal winds it endured, not perfect but human, vast as the sea that carried her father's spirit home. The note's ink had faded, but its weight lingered like the humid aftermath of a summer squall. Esmeralda traced the loops of her father's script each morning, the Rolex heavy on her wrist as she paddled out into the glassy dawn. Tarifa's waters were mercurial, calm 1 hour, a frenzy of whitecaps the next, and so was her heart in the weeks that followed the dockside reckoning. Ivy's presence was a steady current, pulling her toward uncharted swells, but the undercurrents of family tugged back, laced with the salt of unresolved hurts. Ivy adapted to the village's rhythms with the ease of someone who'd backpacked from Marrakesh to Madrid. She traded her yoga mat for communal Zumba classes in the plaza, her laughter ringing over the cobblestones as local abuelas twirled with surprising vigor. See, she'd say, linking arms with Esmeralda after, their fingers interlacing like vines. Spain's got soul. We're grafting our roots here. But Esmeralda felt the graft chafe. Tomás's apologies came in fits, a grunted lo siento over breakfast, a new surfboard wax kit left on the shop counter. Elena's were softer, woven into the fabric of daily life. Fresh empanadas wrapped for Ivy's lunches, a tentative invitation to Sunday Mass that Ivy politely sidestepped with a smile and a sketch of the Virgin as a surfer girl. Yet the betrayal of the Rolex sale echoed in quiet moments, a phantom tick against Esmeralda's pulse. One evening, as the sun dipped into the Atlantic like a molten coin, they hiked the coastal path to Punta Paloma, dunes rolling like frozen waves underfoot. Ivy carried a picnic basket, hummus and flatbreads from the Mercado, a nod to her Middle Eastern detours, and a bottle of chilled Verdejo. Esmeralda lagged, the note tucked in her pocket like a talisman. You're brooding again, Ivy said, spreading a sarong on the sand. The air hummed with cicadas, the distant crash of surf a lullaby. Esmeralda sank beside her, knees drawn up. Not brooding. Processing. That note. Dad knew about me? Before the accident? He wrote it like he saw my future. All windswept and wild. But Tomás, he erased that future when he sold the watch. Ivy poured wine, the liquid catching the light like liquid gold. He was scared, yes. Like my folks back home, quoting Leviticus over potlucks. Fear makes monsters of us all. She leaned in, lips brushing Esmeralda's temple. But look at us. We're the proof love wins. Their kiss deepened there on the dunes, slow and exploratory, hands mapping familiar territories with renewed wonder. No urgency, just the quiet affirmation of bodies speaking what words often fumbled. As stars pricked the indigo sky, Esmeralda whispered. What if we made it official? Not rings, Spain's slow on that, but vows. Here under these skies. Ivy's eyes sparkled. Vows like your dad's note? Stealing moments from time. They crafted them that night, words etched in the sand with a driftwood branch. I vow to ride your storms, to hold your hidden notes close. By morning the tide had claimed them, but the promise lingered. Back in the village, conflict simmered anew. Tomas's boat, the Maria Elena, sprang a leak during a rough crossing to Tangier, stranding him overnight in Moroccan waters. Elena paced the cottage, rosary beads clicking like accusatory gears. He drinks too much since. Everything, she admitted to Esmeralda over tea, steam curling like ghosts. Blames himself for your father's death. Should have warned him about that reef. Esmeralda's throat tightened. Javier's accident. A foggy night, rogue waves, the hull splintered on hidden rocks. Tomas had been first mate. His shout lost in the gale. Guilt's a cruel tide, mama. Pulls you under if you don't swim. When Tomas returned, salt-crusted and sullen, he cornered Esmeralda in the garden, pruning shears forgotten in his grip. The engine seized again. Need cash for parts. That American, does she have savings? Or her fancy online work? Rage flared, hot and immediate. Ivy's not an ATM, Tomas. And neither am I. You sold Dad's watch once. Won't let you pawn us now. His face twisted, shears clattering to the gravel. Bride? This is survival. Fish are scarce, debts mount. Your love blinds you to real life. Ivy, overhearing from the doorway, stepped forward, voice even. Survival includes family, senor. All of it. Let us help. Not as charity but partnership. Esmeralda and I confront the repair. But no more secrets. Tomas deflated, shoulders sagging like a luffed sail. Partnership, he echoed, the word foreign on his tongue. That night, over a makeshift dinner of canned tuna and bread, he shared stories of his youth. Sailing with his father from Cadiz, dreams deferred by war and waves. Ivy listened, sketching his weathered hands on a napkin, capturing the lines of a life etched by labor. Yet betrayal lurked in subtler forms. Elena, in a moment of weakness, confessed to Esmeralda. Tomas wrote to the priest in Gibraltar, asking about conversion quand? For you. The words landed like a rogue wave, knocking the breath from her lungs. Esmeralda stormed to Ivy's room, tears carving tracks down her cheeks. They still want to fix me. Like I'm broken. Ivy pulled her close, the pension's thin walls muffling the village's nocturnal hum. You're not. But we can't heal them for them. They lay entwined, breath sinking like ocean swells, plotting escape. Not flight but fortitude. Let's go to Gibraltar. See the watch's old haunts. Reclaim the story. The drive east was a ribbon of coastal highway, cliffs plunging to turquoise depths. Gibraltar's rock loomed, a sentinel of limestone riddled with history's echoes. Moors, monkeys, British redcoats. They wandered the pond district, a labyrinth of brass signs and flickering fluorescence, Esmeralda's hand in Ivy's a defiant anchor. At Reloy's Antigua,